calls for a national plan. Struggling Canadian military vets left in the lurch.
All I want is my money so I can live my life.
And Republicans confront the Washington politicians they elected. Paul Hunter gets their take 1 month into a new presidency. Plus, in the month of Black History, her story, mining the past, paying it forward.
And that's when I decided, I need to do something.
Words are not enough, not when it comes to the sudden influx of people sneaking into Canada to claim asylum. That was the message Manitoba's premier sent to Ottawa today as he called on the federal government to take action. Manitoba and Quebec have seen the greatest increases in the number of people walking over the border. But Brian Pallister says this is a national issue and it requires a national plan. Cameron McIntosh has more.
Today, he's filing his refugee claim. Yesterday, Mustafa Jali was walking across the border.
I would just want a life, better life. I would just want to get new opportunity, get Canada safe.
He says in Somalia, his family was killed. With that application, the 28-year-old will be able to access limited federal health care, provincial social assistance, and eventually a work permit. For now, he's staying in a Salvation Army shelter.
They treat me good, very good. They treat me, I appreciate that government, Canada, I appreciate that.
Since January 1st, there have been nearly 140 others who have crossed into Manitoba, all drawing on resources stretching thin.
As an inclusive
in a province where the premier says refugees are welcome.
As Manitobans have never, ever turned their backs on people in need.
But Brian Pallister insists this sudden influx of illegal crossings is a national issue, requiring national attention.
To improve the way we do things and to help to make sure that we're addressing a situation that some would fear is getting somewhat out of hand.
Canada does not accept refugee applicants from the U.S., but under international law will accept a refugee claim from someone who manages to get into the country. Recent changes to American immigration policy are driving mostly African asylum seekers north. So far, Manitoba and Quebec are seeing most of the crossings. For now, the RCMP and Border Services have reallocated resources. As for greater financial support or changes to policy, the Public Safety Minister says the situation is being assessed.
We need to clearly understand this and anticipate where the ebbs and flows may go over the next number of weeks and months. We want to make sure that the country is prepared.
Manitoba, meanwhile, is putting more paramedics on the border and increasing funding for housing and settlement programs, which Jali will need to access as he waits for his refugee board hearing.
I don't know what's going to happen later.
Now, as he waits, it's likely Manitoba's refugee system will get even more stretched. The expectation here is there's likely more people headed towards the border. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Toronto is also feeling the effects of the influx of refugees over the past year. More than 800 people seeking refugee status used a Toronto shelter last month. That's up 80% over January 2016. Toronto's mayor says if the trend continues, the city will need help from both the province and Ottawa.
As we see these refugees come here, we have to be put in a position, including financially, to be able to support them.
Canada Border Services says the number of refugee claims being made at Ontario land crossings is going up. No surprise then that the border came up today during a call between the Prime Minister and the U.S. President. Katie Simpson with more on the chat between Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump.
This was the first call between the Prime Minister and President since their meeting last week. And the focus, according to both, was on areas of mutual cooperation, including the border. But at a time when illegal crossings are getting so much attention in Canada, neither side would say specifically if that concern was addressed. A senior Liberal source tells CBC News the noon-hour chat was organized at the request of the Canadian government. Justin Trudeau used the conversation to again push the importance of trade, in particular softwood lumber. The White House made no mention of trade, but says Donald Trump highlighted security, saying he emphasized the administration's plans to protect Americans from terror attacks. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
Not so long ago, many on the American right would have Maybe laughed at Donald Trump headlining the annual Conservative Political Action Conference, but not anymore. Tomorrow, President Trump takes the stage at CPAC. The yearly event is like a high-energy stockholders meeting for grassroots conservative activists. As Tom Perry tells us, some of Trump's chief lieutenants spent today warming up the room for their boss.
You know, Steve, you're a really likable guy. You should do this more often.
Donald Trump's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, rarely speaks in public. But in front of a friendly crowd, he didn't hold back, railing against the media, or as he calls it, the opposition party.
They are absolutely dead wrong about what's going on today because we have a team that's just grinding it through on what President Donald Trump promised the American people. And the mainstream media better understand something. All of those promises are going to be implemented.
Bannon, the former head of Breitbart News, used to be an outsider at this conference. He once called Breitbart a platform for the alt-right, a movement described by others as a loose collection of nationalists, anti-Semites, and white supremacists. Conservative organizers want to distance themselves from those negative connotations, and so today they kicked out white nationalist leader Richard Spencer, the man credited with coining the phrase alt-right.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
Scenes like that have made Spencer persona non grata here. Bannon, who has been accused of holding ultra-conservative views of his own, now joins Trump's chief of staff, Reince Priebus, among the ultimate insiders. Their disdain for the media and praise for the president and his agenda have a wide audience here.
I think it's going to be great for America. I think it's going to be great for the world.
I think they're going fantastic. If he keeps up this pace, we'll get everything done we wanted, plus.
Donald Trump has provoked protests in other parts of the country, and some people here have a theory about that.
I think they're organized. They're organized by the Democrats. They're paid for.
That's a message we've heard before from die-hard Trump supporters. To them, the fact the mainstream media doesn't report on it makes it all the more suspect. There may be more of that same message yet to come. The main event of this conference is tomorrow, when Donald Trump, a man who calls the media enemies of the American people, is set to speak. Tom Perry, CBC News, Washington.
As for those American people, many of them made their own voices heard today, but it's doubtful that President Trump would have liked everything they have to say about him, even in key Republican stronghold states. Paul Hunter has more on the pushback against Trump's policies from the town halls of Middle America.
On the third floor of the Floyd County Courthouse in Charles City, Iowa today, it was an overflow crowd packing the hallway outside the courtroom set aside for today's town hall. Inside, they filled every seat and then some, even the juror's box. Iowa voters, most of them furious with the direction Donald Trump is taking America.
So I would like you to respond to how you're dealing with his lies and the attack on the press.
Here today to give their message in person to their senator, who's back in town for a few days from Washington. In Iowa, that's Republican Chuck Grassley. He got an earful.
Please explain to us, your Iowa constituents, your hypocrisy and your willingness to ignore our Constitution.
We had impeachment.
It's no surprise to Grassley. He'd even listed the topics he knew he'd hear about: healthcare, refugees, Russia. Someone shouted out, "Respect for truth." Another yelled, "Re-election." It's clear people who came here today feel gutted about their new president.
I feel sad. I feel dissatisfied. I feel emotional about the way he talks to people and demeans people and treats people. I think it's absolutely disgusting, quite frankly.
Did you ever think you'd be saying things like that about the president of your country?
No.
It's a scene that's playing out across America this week. With Congress on a break, it's the first chance federal politicians have had since Trump was sworn in last month to hear directly from voters back home. So, in Arkansas.
What would you say to my American children, my daughter right here, who fear that our family might be separated and their daddy might be sent away?
2020, you're gone! Louisiana. Kentucky. All Republican strongholds, all now finding loud opposition to the Republican president. And all of it underlining the ever-deepening divide in this country. On stark display today back in Iowa. Because for all the shouting, there are also countless Americans not showing up at those town halls, content to go about their days, giving Trump the time and freedom to do what he does. Because the truth is, there's also a lot of support for Donald Trump in America. Just down the street from the Charles City Courthouse, Trump voter Brian Ellsbury, who runs a local coffee shop and who quietly gives Trump a private thumbs up.
I think he has a core value. He's changed a little bit, but for the most part, he's delivering what he promised.
To those turning out at all the town halls this week, says Ellsbury, he felt the same way when Obama was elected.
The difference between them and me is I'm not out there protesting. I'm biding my time. I'm waiting for the next election because that's what a democracy is.
Meanwhile, just outside town, more Trump backers. Like Brian Ellsbury, farmers Linda and Dean Jaden don't go to town halls or take placards to demonstrations. They're among the many millions of Americans who want to give Trump a chance. It's his turn now.
And I don't want this to be a bashing of the Democratic Party or anything, but 8 years ago, we elected a person that kind of promised us hope and change, and what did we get? We got bigger government, we got more regulations, and a lot of us, the silent majority, just didn't want that.
They know that Trump's not perfect, and for example, are as concerned as anyone about his relationship, still unproven, with Russia. But they like that he's a straight talker, and they know that some of what he's trying to do can be misinterpreted, such as his crackdown on illegal immigrants.
If you look at the end of the day, what he's trying to do is really get rid of the criminals, you know, the ones that are here illegally and are doing damage. They're hurting people.
Of course, it remains a different message back at the Floyd County Courthouse. Here, the questions go on for more than an hour, mostly polite, but firm. Iowa nice, they call it.
So yes, I am talking to you. Are you going to oppose that?
Well, even if at times afterwards it gets heated.
Then why do you think that you support him?
Because he is part of how we're going to get it.
You need to change this up here because that is not the way to think.
Leaving those who oppose Trump with the view that the divide in America seems unbridgeable.
We have to speak up, and we have to make ourselves known, and we have to become activists.
Paul Hunter, CBC News, Charles City, Iowa.
So, Paul, love that Iowa nice reference. You know, we've seen grassroots protesters and pushback against presidents before. This feels different. Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know, it's like it's the Trump factor. No one really knows what he's going to do next, right? I mean, he's different than any president anyone has ever seen before, and so you have different responses to it. For Democrats, it's kind of like the fear of the unknown when it comes to Trump. For Republicans, the unknown brings hope and optimism because, at least theoretically, he's on their side. But nobody really knows. And with Barack Obama, people kind of thought they knew what he wanted to do broadly with the country. They could agree or they could disagree. They could protest or they could not, but they kind of knew where he was going. With Trump, it's not like that. It's like a high-stakes work in progress. And the result of that is that emotions get ratcheted that much higher. And, you know, a month and a week or so into his presidency, and you have weeks like we saw here with, no doubt, more to come.
Indeed. Looks like some mucky weather there. Thanks, Paul. Well, President Trump caused more political confusion today by once again seemingly contradicting others in his administration, this time over the enforcement of U.S. deportation orders.
We're getting really bad dudes out of this country.
and at a rate that nobody's ever seen before. It's a military operation.
That description flies in the face of previous White House assurances that deportations have not been militarized. And it happened on the same day that his Homeland Security chief said this in Mexico City.
Let me be very, very clear. There will be no mass deportations. And again, listen to this. No use of military force in immigration operations.
John Kelly and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson met their Mexican counterparts to talk trade and security today. But their meeting was dominated by the new U.S. plan to deport back to Mexico all those caught crossing into the United States, regardless of their nationality, something Mexico bitterly opposes. Despite strained relations between the two countries, both sides have agreed to continue talking. Now, that site of a months-long pipeline protest that captured international attention, well, it's empty tonight. The protest camp on North Dakota's Standing Rock Reservation was cleared today by police officers and members of the National Guard. Protesters had been ordered to leave by yesterday, and today dozens of holdouts were arrested. The pipeline was recently given the go-ahead by the new administration. Coming up, Donald Trump and his administration are the talk of the town elsewhere in the world as well.
When the U.S. becomes uncertain, the rest of the world feels uncertainties.
Sasha Petrusik measures the mood in Beijing. Plus, Rex is here with the conservative leadership race in mind. Every November, Canadians honor them. Our governments say they deserve our greatest respect. But when it comes to looking after Canadian soldiers after their military careers, well, some are feeling far from respected. Thousands are caught up in a huge backlog, waiting for their pensions and other veterans' benefits. And as Murray Brewster tells us, the wait just got longer.
I did everything that I possibly could not to be in this position.
Stephen White, a career military man, 34 years in uniform, with the latter part spent in human resources.
I understand backlogs, and I understand, look, the people that are doing the paperwork probably are doing 3 or 4 jobs. I know, I was there.
In preparing to leave the military, he ticked every box and signed every form. One set of forms went in a year in advance. There were going to be delays, and he knew it. White adjusted his personal budget, set aside money.
When you leave, it's like a slap in the face.
White says there was a 4-month wait for his pension. His severance was dramatically lower than the military's initial estimate. Veterans Affairs benefits have arrived piecemeal.
We're just a number, and it's insulting and humiliating.
White borrowed money from family, maxed out his credit, and took a job to stay afloat. A job he had to quit because of a military service injury. White is not alone. But some veterans can't or are not willing to wait. CBC News recently spoke with one ex-soldier who used the threat of legal action to get his pension check. The veteran did not want to be interviewed. Military Ombudsman Gary Walborn hopes others don't go down that road.
It's going to cause more delays and more bureaucracy to come to bear, so I'd rather we didn't find ourselves having to get to that extreme.
I have the same ambition that anybody else would have. I'd love for your pension check to be ready the next day.
1, 2. But National Defense estimates there is now a backlog of 5,264 pension cases and says it won't be solved until December. There are a myriad of reasons it's gotten this bad. Staffing cuts, more medical releases post-Afghanistan, at least 2,500 a year, the introduction of pensions for reservists. Internal documents obtained by CBC News say the system has become so convoluted it requires re-engineering rather than tweaking.
We are doing everything we can to not release people until they're ready.
But Ombudsman Gary Walborn says this is a crisis for many military families. He's urging the Liberal government to set up some kind of an emergency fund to get them through until the backlog is resolved. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
An Iranian woman facing deportation has now been allowed to stay 2 years in Canada as a temporary resident. We introduced you to Rehe Azizi Mirmaleh on Sunday. She says she spent 3 years in prison in Iran for her political activism. Azizi Mirmaleh's application for refugee status was refused in 2013. Her lawyer says likely due to her client's affiliation with an exiled opposition group that calls for the overthrow of the Iranian government. Canada and the U.S. dropped that group from their list of banned terror groups 5 years ago. The Conference Board of Canada is predicting that Alberta will see the strongest growth of all the provinces this year. Overall in Canada, the board predicts oil prices will stay relatively low, pulling GDP growth down to 1.9%. But the agreement late last year by OPEC and non-OPEC oil-producing countries to lower production levels will help drive up the price of Alberta oil, meaning the board predicts Alberta will see real GDP growth hit 2.8%. Mike Duffy is on the hook for his own legal bills. A key Senate committee turned down a request from the former Conservative senator for partial reimbursement after he was acquitted of charges related to his expenses. Duffy could appeal the decision to the Senate as a whole. And the Trinity Western Law School case is going to the Supreme Court. The BC-based school requires all law students to sign a covenant agreeing not to engage in sex outside of heterosexual marriage. The law societies of BC and Upper Canada and Ontario are seeking to deny accreditation to Trinity Western grads, arguing that the school discriminates against LGBTQ students. The Iraqi army's fight to take back the city of Mosul from ISIS has been raging for months. A significant development tonight, right after this break.
This week was National Weight Watchers Week in Canada, and 900 overweight women held their annual convention in Hamilton.
Most of us talk a great diet. Most of us actually do very little about it.
Push, pull, push, pull. These battlers of the bulge have come together in their common warren. They go through a weekly weigh-in, pay their $2 lecture fee, then listen to the hideous, piteous tales of their fellow fatties already on the diet program.
I lost a ton of fat in my lifetime, but I never could keep it off until I found the Weight Watcher program.
Most diets would put you on a 1,000 calorie a day program. The average junk lunch gives you 1,500 calories alone. Well, why not go for the extreme? Fasting, starvation, just stop eating. In Toronto, there is a clinic, and it will help you starve for 7 days.
The side effects of a 6-day fast is not equivalent to more than the symptoms you might have from a 3-day cold.
In the past 10 years, fad diets have become more and more popular in Canada.
I have tried the grapefruit diet, the banana diet, the citrus diet, the carbohydrate diet, the Women's Day diet.
Swallow any pill. Hook up to any machine. Take inches off easily, the ads proclaim. HCG, made from the urine of pregnant women, is alleged to break down fat quickly. It's administered daily at $7 a shot. But the catch is, to make it work, you have to eat 500 calories a day or less. Dr. Stanley Bernstein's entire practice is devoted to HCG.
A lot of people would call this a fad diet program.
Yes, they would. I feel it's because they're not aware of how well it works.
The standard fat people's lament. 95% of all diets fail within 5 years. People know this, but they keep hoping, looking for the magic bullet that the diet business, despite its promises, can't deliver.
Apparently there is very, very little that can be called successful dieting. The failure rate is fabulous.
A significant victory today in Mosul for Iraq government forces. They've retaken control of the airport from ISIS, a major step forward in the months-long fight to free the city. But as Thomas Daigle reports, the battle to drive ISIS out of Iraq entirely is far from over.
The size of the weapons and the intensity of the fighting show how Iraqi forces didn't care what was left standing, only that ISIS was driven out of the Mosul airport. An intense 4-hour battle on the ground with U.S.-led coalition help from above. ISIS fired back but was forced to retreat, the army scoring a symbolic victory. The black flag of ISIS flew until today above this factory, now burned down. It's a strategic win, too, one that draws troops closer to those homes in the distance. That's western Mosul, the only major stronghold left for ISIS in Iraq. Government forces have already liberated the east, but what's left won't be easy.
It's going to be a bloodbath. It's much tougher than the eastern part. Narrow street, winding street. ISIS has been embedding itself for almost 2 years.
Sensing the impending danger, families with children fled into the windy desert with only a bag or a few belongings. There were many ISIS militants, he says. Some fled, but we were afraid of the shelling and decided to escape. Along the road, civilians, all leaving behind homes and nightmares. They're dead in this house, all dead, he says. My brother has already gone to the camp. He's heartbroken. 6 of his family were killed in an airstrike. Those who could left by the busload. As many as 750,000 are still stuck in Mosul. And here's part of the reason why. Police have begun to uncover some of the secret tunnels that ISIS uses to sneak around the city, making it that much harder to push the militants out. Iraqi forces may be claiming victory in today's battle, but they know there will be more trouble just down the road. Thomas Staggs with CBC News, London.
ISIS is still in control of Raqqa, Syria, and the group's dark shadow hangs over efforts to end Syria's brutal civil war. Today, UN-sponsored peace talks resumed in Geneva. They don't include ISIS, but other opposing factions sat in the same room.
Syrian people desperately want an end to this conflict, and you all know it, and you know it very well.
These talks are taking place as a ceasefire negotiated by Russia, Iran, and Turkey is mostly holding. The UN Special Envoy says he'll meet tomorrow with delegates to try to establish a timeline and procedures for negotiations. Malaysian officials said today they have identified the substance that killed Kim Jong-nam at the Kuala Lumpur airport last week. Closed-circuit cameras caught this woman rubbing VX nerve agent in the face of the half-brother of North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un. The substance is a chemical weapon classified as a weapon of mass destruction by the UN. As you saw earlier, Canada and Mexico are both dealing with the impact of Donald Trump's presidency, while China is on watch too, as Trump speaks out about that country's trade practices and its military presence in the South China Sea. Our China correspondent, Sasha Petrusik, looks at how Beijing is responding.
Snow always comes as a bit of a surprise in Beijing, but also an opportunity for a walk or even a dip. That's just the way China handles the unexpected. And that's the way it sees the world of Donald Trump.
China feels uncertain about the future.
China is used to being challenged and checked by the U.S.
So when the U.S. becomes uncertain, the rest of the world feels uncertainties. We are not used to this.
Even if China considers itself a superpower, militarily and economically. Beijing's been rattled by new threats from Washington, tough talk about using force to stop China from building military bases in the disputed South China Sea, using huge tariffs to slow what Trump calls cheap Chinese imports. But in all that bluster, China sees a chance, and it goes beyond ridiculing Trump with plastic dolls next to his pal, Russian President Vladimir Putin. Beijing's opening?
So if the U.S. looks weaker, inconsistent, stupid, cannot be trusted by its allies, it's a net win to China.
So, in front of the world's leading capitalists last month, Chinese President Xi Jinping presented himself as a champion of free trade, as Trump was canceling or questioning several key trade agreements. A PR move, really, since China itself has plenty of trade and investment barriers, an image meant to gain supremacy in Eastern Asia and beyond. But many in China don't trust Trump. Xu Yinhong, at the Center of American Studies here, worries that Trump's strategy is to co-opt Moscow so he can pressure Beijing.
Mr. Trump have maybe quite a clear motivation. He want to make a rapprochement with Russia, partly because he want to focus on China.
There is a fear that Trump has sinister designs on China, questioning its sovereignty, for instance, by cozying up to Taiwan. He's backed off on that for now, but what to make of all his other threats and tweets? China's not sure if those are likely to help or harm its own designs on superpower status. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Beijing.
There were hopes last month that the decades-old division of Cyprus might finally be at an end, but peace talks in Geneva fell apart, and there's no date yet for them to resume. That is the latest hurdle in efforts to reunite the Mediterranean island, split into a Greek Cypriot south and a Turkish Cypriot north since fighting erupted there in 1974. Canadians have been a big part of the UN peacekeeping mission and continue to play a key role. Neil Coxell reports.
This is a town with two identities, Girne in Turkish, Kyrenia in Greek, and like every part of this island is burdened by a question. Can Cypriots coexist here again? Canadian Elizabeth Spehar for the United Nations has a key seat at the latest peace talks.
That these two particular leaders, Mr. Anastasiades, the Greek Cypriot leader, and Mr. Akıncı, the Turkish Cypriot leader, have gone further than any of their predecessors. And they are shaping a deal that we believe is a deal that could be very good for all Cypriots across the island.
If they can stop the past from poisoning the future once again. So decades later, it is still tangled, this business of peace. The old Nicosia airport is proof of that. It was a key target for Turkish jets in the summer of 1974. And a key moment for Canadian peacekeepers caught in the crossfire to help stop the fighting.
The only way to achieve that is to basically run across the battlefield. They just ran towards the advancing troops with armed only with a flag, no weapons.
Into the fire.
Into the fire while the bullets were flying.
The fighting would resume, but this airport, once a modern runway to the world, sits idle still, right in the middle of the island's dividing line in the UN buffer zone.
The Cyprus Airways plane was parked on the tarmac in 1974 when the conflict started, and it has not moved since. It is an enduring symbol, an enduring scar of the conflict on this island that's still divided between north and south, and proof that in many ways the island is still stuck in 1974.
It's taken Canadian Hülya Eros most of her life to come to terms with what happened that summer. She was 6, a Turkish Cypriot, living in the mainly Greek Cypriot south.
All my neighbors were Greek, all my friends were Greek. I spoke Greek, and we all got along really well. And then the one day, sirens went off.
And the Greek soldiers moved in.
So I remember my aunt and cousins, because they were really my only relatives, and I had my grandparents. So off they went, and we're just looking at them like we didn't know if they'd see us or we'd see them again.
Greek Cypriots, too, were killed or made refugees by the fighting, pushed out of the north by Turkish soldiers.
The Turkish people took our city, you know, Famagusta can't go there. They lost my son.
So now, even those who hold no resentment, who hope for peace, can't believe it will actually come.
Realistically, I don't think it's going to happen in this decade, in my lifetime, because there are too many factors.
That may be the one thing many Greek and Turkish Cypriots can agree on. Neil Köksal, CBC News, Kyrenia, Cyprus.
Coming right up, 2 powerful stories of accomplishment against childhood odds from 2 women helping kids today achieve their own success.
Because they can be there, because they have the ability to be there, because they deserve to be there.
That's next on The National. Let's look at the day's business numbers. The TSX dropped 49 points. The dollar closed up almost 0.2 cents. In New York, the Dow notched its 10th straight record high, adding 34 points, and the price of oil continued its move up, 86 cents a barrel.
You have to go for a dope test.
A track star nowadays has to be followed around by a doping official almost any time she wins a major event. What the testers are mainly looking for here is the subject of an international ban. Anabolic steroids, a derivative of the male sex hormone, which is supposed to build muscle.
The athletes say all this doping control business is a bit of a waste of time and money, which is something the Canadian team does not have in abundance.
Good evening. The nation is in shock tonight over the downfall of a Canadian hero. Ben Johnson, who made the country so proud on Friday, was, just hours ago, thrown out of the Olympics for taking drugs, steroids.
Oh, that's devastating.
It makes me wonder what's happening to Canadian athletics.
It's the biggest disappointment anybody could ever imagine.
In this Montreal lab, scientists test the blood and urine of athletes for signs of drug use, signs of cheating. There's no shortage of work and much more to come now that Montreal has been named headquarters of the World Anti-Doping Agency.
There will be more pressure on Canadian athletes, but not only Canadian athletes, all athletes around the world.
Europe's fastest sprinter has become the latest athlete to test positive for a new designer steroid called THG. The drug is at the heart of a widening doping scandal in the U.S.
Fortunes have fallen for American sprinter Marion Jones.
American cyclist Floyd Landis has admitted to using performance-enhancing drugs.
Lance Armstrong has finally coughed up what was pretty much an open secret.
Do you feel disgraced?
Of course. If you're the second best athlete in the world, you might do anything to be number one. Whether there's testing or whether there isn't testing.
This is Mordecai Richler, a Canadian writer now living in England. And these are some of the things he writes.
Young people are leaving Canada, one, because they feel there is no opportunity for them at home, and two, because they're bored.
It's a small country, and if you're an English-speaking Canadian, there's certainly no capital. The cultural capitals are either New York or London.
Another reason I write is it's this continuing attempt to evolve a standard or a position or a moral posture. And I work it out in my books, and I'm still working it out.
My loyalties, or what I think of as Canada, is really Montreal, the Laurentians, the region surrounding the city. I tend to feel something of a stranger in other parts of Canada. I have no overwhelming sense of country.
I'm not the most pretentious of writers. I write for my own pleasure and for my friends, and I hope to find as wide an audience as possible. I try to be an honest witness to my times.
You have been known to make rather rude statements in public, probably slightly under the influence of...
No, that's not fair. I mean, what I mean is, I wasn't necessarily under the influence.
You mean you can be rude without drinking, is that?
If called upon.
Multiculturalism was a very well-intended notion, like most Canadian notions, but not very bright like most Canadian notions.
I'm trying to tell the truth. I don't think that it's something that has to be in season like hockey or hay fever. I think you should be able to tell the truth at any time. And if it makes people uncomfortable, I can't help it. Well, I think I'm very fortunate in that most men work at jobs they dislike intensely because they have to support a family, and most women do. So anyone who's being paid to do work he enjoys is very privileged in this world, and I don't have to ingratiate myself with anybody or taint my work in order to make it appealing. So I'm very lucky.
As Black History Month draws to a close, tonight a slightly different approach, rooted not in the institutions of a distant past, but in the personal stories of contemporary Black women. A grassroots initiative called Her Story in Black gathered 150 of them, and tonight a look at two the obstacles they overcame, the successes they've achieved, and perhaps most importantly, their outreach to children who are starting out just as they did. The CBC's Tashana Reid explains.
In this room, women who thought they stood alone stand together, shared experiences of struggle and triumph. Anaya Fares knows struggle all too well. Her family fled Angola during the Civil War in the 90s. They landed in Canada.
It was hard, especially because we moved around a lot as well. It was difficult to get any stability or any roots.
At 11, Anaya's parents separated. Her mother left the country and placed her in the care of friends. But things didn't work out.
I remember 2 weeks before I went into care, I was sitting in a park. I was crying and I looked up and I said, I need my life to change. And 2 weeks later, I landed in my foster mom's home. And she was everything I could ask for in a mother.
Sandra Davis has fostered more than 100 kids.
I remember thinking my heart broke because, you know, she was all alone and she didn't have anybody. Are you making yourself eggs?
For the next 2 years, Anaya thrived under Sandra's care. Her grades improved and she finally found home.
I'm here to provide them a safe place for them to be and help them on their journey.
And just to see how even they accepted me. It was a time that I really, really grew into myself.
Work.
But home didn't last long. At 17, Anaya was aged out of the system. That same year, she learned her biological mother passed away.
Like I had to go back to my very difficult life of, you know, figuring out about the roof over my head.
After some tough years battling depression and homelessness, Anaya finished school and landed her first job.
And that's when I decided, like, I need to do something.
Anaya developed a mentoring program in Toronto called Cheers, creating hope and ensuring excellent roads to success.
It's been a while since we saw each other.
To help youth in transition, like Vivian and Adang.
So what are your anxieties?
The program pairs former youth in care with ones on their way out.
I just don't feel like other people understand where I'm coming from right now, and they need to give me time and space.
You know, there are resources here at the program that you can always access.
18-year-old Adang is in foster care, but in a few months, she's on her own.
How am I going to mentally prepare myself to be on my own? Like,
now a 5-year, $600,000 grant from Children's Aid Foundation will allow Cheers to expand its reach.
So my vision really is to transform the way youth age out of foster care with life skills. Because when you age out of care, the shock, like, it gets real.
Anaya Fares from Canada.
Anaya's journey brought her all the way here, Buckingham Palace, one of 60 people in the world to accept the Queen's Young Leader Award.
Meeting the Queen was awesome. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Eugenia Duodu's story begins in the classroom. Her passion for science started at a young age.
I grew up in a Toronto housing community, and I found that I enjoyed science. I loved science. I had teachers who really motivated me and had different learning styles that really inspired me.
That passion led her to a PhD in chemistry.
As I was journeying through science, I realized that I was becoming lonelier and lonelier in my field in terms of my life experience being from housing and being a Black woman. A square-wheeled car, you guys are gonna make one.
She noticed youth programs in marginalized communities were recreation or arts-based.
So what's your diameter?
But there was a gap in STEM programs: science, technology, engineering, and math.
So I was like, if there's a way that we can bring STEM learning to the forefront in these communities, perhaps the perception of STEM can be different. What does congruent mean?
Identical in size and shape.
Oh.
She started as a volunteer for Visions of Science, a Saturday program for kids.
They have the freedom to kind of learn and explore, tinker, experiment, make mistakes.
I like coming here because I get to learn new stuff and I get to be with my friend.
I think it's working because there's just no pressure. It's like, this is not about marks. This is not about merit. This is about you genuinely understanding what you're doing and reflecting on it and seeing how that relates to the real world.
You have obtuse and acute. Do you guys know what those are?
Yeah. They're angles.
Oh, they're angles.
And that fun is paying off in the classroom.
And a lot of them have been able to say, yeah, I've gotten better grades in school now. I really want youth to have the opportunity to be at the forefront of groundbreaking research because they can be there, because they have the ability to be there, because they deserve to be there, and their answers can make a difference.
From here to the center.
Visions of Science expanded from 5 locations to 19 in Toronto. And now a new generation of young volunteers from the community are giving back.
I wanted to just give these kids a fun time too. And majority of these kids I've known since they're little.
The volunteers that come, they come and they feel so connected for the same reasons that I do.
But it was a long road. Encouragement from her community and family pushed Eugenia through moments of doubt.
It's hard to be the only one. I felt like the pressure was different for me than it was for everyone else. That's just how I felt. I want people to look at that photo and just feel empowered to do anything. I feel like that photo represents just what Black women can achieve. And I want people to look at that photo and be like, I can do this.
The hope? These images and their stories will inspire this generation and the next. Tashana Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
Fabulous stories. They're just 2 of them, by 150 women brought together by a grassroots initiative to coincide with Canada's 150th celebration. Her Story in Black is a digital photo series telling their stories and celebrating their accomplishments, and you can see it all online. Just go to cbc.ca/herstoryinblack. That's all one word. We'll have 2 more inspiring stories tomorrow night on The National. But next, Rex Murphy and his point of view coming right up.
But for another category of goods that has transformed our world, the gadgets or the tools of the electronic media. Here are some film projectors, the movies. I wonder what it really means, though, to be able to flick a switch and to bring in any part of the world, to see the most personal relationships of mankind acted out before us. It's so easy, isn't it? A handy, instantaneous gadget. The tape recorder. Small, portable, can go and has gone everywhere. India, just a button's push away. Space means nothing. With a record collection, neither space nor time matter. We can, all of us, share in everything from anywhere and any time. Well, back to box day with the flick of a wrist. Fabian, Frankie Avalon, the voice of FDR, Petrushka, the music of Arabia, the sound of a sports car race in Florida. Even the most Puritan among us engages now each and every day in an absolute Roman carnival of the senses. There are new sights, new sounds, new fabrics, new textures. Well, we're all dedicated libertines. And radio. Well, we've heard the sound of symphonies, of riots, and of battles, and all without leaving the living room. And now, radio goes with us to beach parties. Or to the baseball games. And each of us with our own private slice of the modern age. We're never out of touch. And television? Well, I wonder who really knows what it means to have pouring into our homes day after day the cowboys, the rock and roll singers, the statesmen, the philosophers, the whole debate of our modern world. Well, surely our sense of space, of time, of cause and effect must be changing. And our attitudes to life and love, to religion, politics, and leisure, what of them? Oh, I I almost forgot. The telephone. We can afford to take it for granted because it's been around so long. Surely, though, our sense of space, of distance, the relationship of person from person no longer means what it did. And you'll notice that the image of the telephone goes with the teenager, because he's the only one completely at home using it. And he uses it all the time. That's annoying, isn't it, to be held up even 5 minutes? Must be a teenager on the other end. Well, there they are. Our new electronic media, or our new gadgets. You push a button, and the world's yours. You know how they talk about the world getting smaller? Well, it's thanks to these that it is. Everywhere is now our own neighborhood. We know what it's like to go on safari in Kenya, or to have an audience with the Pope, to order a cognac in a Paris cafe. But not only is the world getting smaller, it's becoming more available and more familiar to our minds and to our emotions. The world is now a global village.
This year in Canada, the Academy Awards have tough competition. The PC Leadership Campaign, a juggernaut of such genetic tedium that not even the name-dropping eternal droning of the Academy's thank you speeches can hope to rival it. Just about all of the Conservative big names, John Baird, Peter MacKay, Jason Kenney, have left politics or gone somewhere else, most notably Mr. Kenney to the fertile, faction-rich fields of Alberta. Their steadiest, most consistent performer, despite recent tumults, Ronna Ambrose, declined to enter the race. Now, I'm auto-tuned to dismiss parallels between Canadian and American politics, but the PC leadership bears too many resemblances to that ludicrously overcrowded competition the Republicans put on. At times, that was as jammed as the battle scenes from The Lord of the Rings to ignore. Whereas up here, it's as dull as Manchester by the Sea, a run of candidates that in ordinary times would be names on a best supporting actors list, with the exception, of course, of that political embryo, Kevin O'Leary. Mr. O'Leary is the Canadian echo of Donald Trump. I see him as a political version of the Canadarm, a much-hyped Canadian add-on to an otherwise American project. O'Leary is an imitation of an original, a kind of knockoff Donald Trump. And as all brand-conscious people will agree, everyone wants the original. Nonetheless, O'Leary is the attention getter. This country has traveled a lot in the last 150 years, from John A. Macdonald in historic Charlottetown hammering out an incipient confederation, to a leading candidate for the leadership of the McDonald's Conservative Party hawking wine on a U.S. shopping channel. Outside of O'Leary, a few candidates have some profile. Bernier, Leach, maybe Scheer, maybe Alexander, Chong as being a contrast candidate. The rest, with respect, largely undifferentiated, a huddle of long shots. Stephen Harper gave the Conservatives 10 years in power. One thing the current leadership race underlines is how much what success in modern times the Conservatives have enjoyed, as polarizing as Mr. Harper may have been, they owed to him. He gave them coherence, was respected but not owned by the Conservative base, and had substantial intellectual and policy credentials. For all his distant manner, he was impressive. Now, time may alter the equation, but so far there is no one in this leadership contest that can hope to challenge Justin Trudeau in simple telegenic appeal, no one with a bridge to the younger generation that matches his, or who is as at home with the new media of modern politics as the genial Mr. Trudeau. It's a pretty dull run for what should be a very large prize, the leadership of the founding party of Confederation. Instead, it's a crowded field with very little name recognition, plus that Trump's light outsider. In other words, routine and deplorably predictable. It's almost Canadian. For The National, I'm Rex Murphy.
I'm Anna Maria Tremonti. Tomorrow on The Current, the president of Iceland has sparked a global debate after saying he would ban pineapple as a pizza topping if he had the authority to do so. That's on The Current, weekday mornings at 8:30 on CBC Radio 1.
The grooves on a long playing record are 1/1000th of an inch wide. From cutting to wrapping, the disc is processed by a dozen or more men whose sole preoccupation is to ensure that the original sound will be preserved in all its clarity and brilliance on the mass-produced article.
From the moment the first Sony Walkman made its appearance in this country, Canadians have taken to the little toys like beavers to trees.
Yes, I'm on my way.
Music to go. Whatever your taste, you can now take it with you. No one need ever know that you're marching to the beat of a different drummer.
In spite of the success of Canadian artists, the domestic record industry has gone through 4 straight lean years. It's estimated that home taping, pirating, is costing the industry at least $100 million a year in lost sales. And that's nothing compared with the upheavals that lie ahead.
The latest innovation in hi-fi sound is the digital audio disc. It could make your old phonograph records as obsolete as the wax cylinders of Edison's day.
Beneath the clear plastic coating are little lands and grooves that are read by a laser.
Turntables for these new miracle discs will cost over $1,000.
Customers snap them up as fast or faster than the manufacturers turn them out. And every record and tape is being converted to compact disc, from Buddy Holly to Beethoven.
It's also the kind of music that's all over the internet in MP3 format. And many of those young fans know a lot about the internet, so instead of buying the hits, a lot of them just download them for free.
Music World filed for bankruptcy protection on Friday, following other Canadian retailers, like Sam the Record Man, forced to close their doors amid increased competition from big box retailers. And more Canadians going online to download music, either from illegal file sharing sites or legit services like iTunes.
10 years ago, when iTunes began selling music online, the music industry looked on with grave suspicion. But today, iTunes has become one of the few reliable revenue streams. Last year, it became North America's biggest music seller.
Google has entered the digital music business. It's launched its new service in Canada today.
Like iTunes or Spotify or Pandora or Songza or a number of other services, you'll be able to buy a subscription to stream music.
Because you know I'm all about that bass, no trouble.
There's always been change in the music industry. There's been change ever since we started, and it will continue to change.
Bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, bass.
X Company, The Final Mission, Wednesdays at 9 on CBC.
Call the cops. Mennonites, they're chasing me, they're drug traffickers.
You heard him. Mennonites smuggling cocaine from Mexico to Canada.
It's almost directly out of Scarface or something, one of those type of movies.
The Fifth Estate, Friday at 9.
A trailblazing sports icon has died. Bernie Custis was the first black quarterback in pro football. But while he was born American, he made his mark here in Canada.
London calls on his best runner, Bernie Custis. He goes for 7.
Custis was first drafted by the Cleveland Browns in 1951 as a safety. He wanted to be the big playmaker, so when the chance came to sign up as a starter with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, he jumped on it and led the Hammer to a Grey Cup not long after. Bernie finished his CFL playing career with the Ottawa Rough Riders and then went on to a highly successful 3 decades coaching career. Bernie Custis was 88. Now, looking towards tomorrow, we're planning a special CBC News event in Vancouver. The National in Conversation is a one-hour panel discussion about the importance of investigative journalism. Peter will moderate, joined by the CBC's Adrian Arsenault, Natalie Clancy, and Hannah Mansing, Diana Swain, and Connie Walker. You can watch it all online. It will stream live from 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific time on Friday. Go to cbc.ca/The National or look us up on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. And that is The National for this Thursday night. For news at any hour, check out our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Susan Ormiston. Thanks a lot for watching.